You've been scooping the same amount of food into your dog's bowl for years. Same scoop, same bag, same routine. You've probably never once measured it, and you'd probably bet your dog's at a healthy weight anyway. Maybe you've noticed a small change lately and didn't think much of it. You told yourself it's just their coat, or that some dogs are just built bigger than others, or that your vet would have said something if it really mattered. Most owners think the same thing, right up until they find out what one small habit does to a dog over several years, not just a few months. We dug into a 14-year study most owners never hear about, and what it actually found is more specific than the usual watch their diet advice you've heard 100 times. Researchers took dogs from the same litters, split them into two groups, and fed one group about 25% less than the other for their entire lives, keeping the second group at what most owners would consider a totally normal amount of food. The dogs fed less lived a median of nearly 2 years longer. Their arthritis showed up a year and a half later on average. Even dogs that developed cancer in both groups died from it almost 2 years later in the leaner group. This wasn't a supplement, a special diet, or an expensive intervention. It was portion size, measured precisely over an entire lifetime. Most owners aren't intentionally overfeeding their dogs. The problem is almost nobody actually measures. You eyeball a scoop, maybe round up a little because your dog gave you that look, and over months and years, those small overestimates add up to a dog that's carrying real extra weight without anyone noticing it happened. Checking where your dog actually stands takes about a minute, and the scale alone won't tell you. Look at your dog from above. You should see a visible waist, a slight inward curve behind the ribs, like an hourglass. Now look from the side. Their belly should slope upward from the rib cage toward the hind legs, not hang flat or sag downward. Finally, run your hands gently along their ribs. You should be able to feel them easily, with just a thin layer of fat over them, similar to how your knuckles feel when your hand is resting flat on a table. If you have to press firmly to find the ribs at all, or there's no waist and no upward slope to the belly, that's your sign. There's real extra weight to address. Fixing this starts with something simpler than most people expect, and it's not a diet change or a new food. It's an actual measuring cup or a kitchen scale used every single time. Instead of a scoop, you're estimating by eye. Check the feeding guidelines on your dog's food, which are based on their current weight, then measure that exact amount using a standard measuring cup or a kitchen scale, not the scoop that came in the bag. Even those printed guidelines tend to run generous for the average dog, so treat them as a starting point, not gospel. Scoops vary wildly between brands and bags, and eyeballing close enough is exactly the small, repeated overestimate that adds up over a dog's lifetime. Weigh or measure their food at every meal, not just when you remember to. This is also why switching foods without adjusting the amount can quietly throw everything off. Not all dog food is calorie-dense in the same way. A cup of one brand can carry meaningfully more or fewer calories than a cup of another, even when the bag sizes look identical on the shelf. If you switch foods and just keep feeding the same cup measurement out of habit, you can accidentally overfeed or underfeed without changing anything else about your routine. Check the calorie count per cup on the new bag and adjust your measured amount to match, rather than assuming one cup is the same as any other cup. Getting the measuring right is most of the work, but there's a wrong way to act on it that undoes the benefit just as easily as never measuring at all. So stick around for that part before you change anything tonight. Treats matter just as much here, and they're the part people forget to count entirely. Treats should make up no more than about 10% of your dog's total daily calories. If you're free-feeding treats throughout the day on top of full measured meals, you can undo the entire benefit of accurate portioning without realizing it. Swapping some treats for a piece of carrot or a green bean costs you nothing and removes a chunk of hidden calories your dog doesn't actually need. Don't rush this next part, because it's exactly where people undo their own progress. If you find your dog is carrying extra weight, the instinct is to cut their food dramatically and fix it fast. Don't. Sudden, large calorie cuts can cause real problems, and most dogs do best losing weight gradually, around 3 to 5% of their current body weight per month. Adjust the amount slowly, by around 10% at a time, and recheck their body condition every couple of weeks rather than guessing and hoping. Portion size is the biggest lever here, but it's not the only one, and skipping this part is how some owners measure perfectly and still don't see the needle move. Activity level burns through the calories you're now measuring accurately, and a dog getting minimal daily movement needs noticeably less food than one getting regular walks and playtime, even at the exact same body weight. Roughly 30 minutes of real movement a day, not just a quick trip to the yard, makes a measurable difference alongside accurate portioning, not instead of it. Spayed and neutered dogs also tend to have a slightly slower metabolism afterward, which catches a lot of owners off guard because nobody mentions it at the time of the procedure. If your dog was fine on a certain portion before being spayed or neutered and has been slowly gaining since, that's not a coincidence or a personality change. It's a real shift in how many calories they actually burn at rest, and it usually means the portion that worked before needs a modest downward adjustment now. This works for the majority of dogs who just need consistent, measured portions instead of a full intervention. But there's a point where this stops being a bowl adjustment and becomes something you actually need help with. If your dog's ribs are sharp and easily visible with almost no fat covering them at all, that's underweight territory, not a normal variation, and it needs an actual vet visit to rule out an underlying issue rather than more food. On the other end, if your dog is significantly overweight, meaning you genuinely cannot feel their ribs even with firm pressure, that's also a conversation for your vet, since a bigger weight difference needs a calculated, monitored plan rather than a home adjustment alone. If it does come to that, it's a straightforward visit, not an intimidating one. Your vet will assign a formal body condition score alongside a muscle condition score, which catches things a home check can miss, and calculate a specific, safe calorie target based on your dog's actual weight, breed, and health history, rather than a general guideline off the bag. For dogs needing significant change, they'll often set a monthly weight target and check in periodically to adjust the plan as it goes, which takes the guesswork out entirely and catches any underlying medical cause early if there is one. Age and breed change this picture too, and it's worth knowing before you compare your dog to a chart that doesn't quite fit them. Puppies under 4 months old aren't expected to show a defined waist yet, so don't judge a growing puppy against the same standard as an adult dog. Larger breeds also tend to naturally sit slightly leaner on these charts than small breeds do. So use the chart as a general guide and pay more attention to the trend over time than to matching a picture exactly. Senior dogs need another look entirely, since metabolism naturally slows with age the same way it does in people, and a portion that kept your dog lean at 5 years old can quietly become too much by 10, even if you haven't changed a thing about how you feed them. You didn't cause this by neglecting your dog. You caused it, if you did, the same way almost every owner does, by trusting a scoop instead of a scale, which is such a small, invisible habit that nobody thinks to question it until they see the actual data behind it. The part that makes this worth doing isn't just the extra time with your dog, even though nearly 2 years is significant on its own. It's what those extra months and years actually look like. Delayed arthritis means fewer years of pain medication, mobility aids, and follow-up vet visits. A body that stays in good condition longer means fewer of the expensive complications that come with chronic weight-related disease. Added up over a dog's full lifetime, and a $2 measuring cup is standing between you and thousands of dollars in care you may never end up needing, simply because the underlying problem never had the chance to develop as early or as severely. Check your dog's body condition tonight using what you just learned. And if the scoop's been doing the measuring instead of an actual cup, That's the one thing to change, starting with their very next meal. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch the next one before the next problem shows up. And tell us in the comments when you actually checked just now. Was your dog's body condition what you expected, or did it surprise you? We read every comment, and we want to know how many people find out tonight that their dog isn't quite where they thought.